Okay, let's get going. Hello, everyone. My name is Sindhuja, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our webinar on Account Executive 2.0. We from Demand Blue are a Salesforce consulting partner helping businesses unleash the power of Salesforce through our on-demand services. Demand Blue provides dedicated practice and support for Salesforce Revenue Cloud for all your consulting needs. Before we begin, I'd like to start with a few housekeeping notes. We are recording, as everyone can see, and we will share it afterwards to all participants. During the webinar, feel free to use the chat window below to ask any questions. We will save time at the end to address all of them. As for our session agenda, you're in for a treat. Today, we will start with an overview from our friends at Forrester and go into a panel discussion with our speakers. During this time, we will be launching interactive polls, so please stay tuned to your screens. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our panel of speakers today. To start, we have Kate Leggett, VP Principal Analyst from Forrester. Kate, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I think you did a great job. I head up the CRM practice here at Forrester, and I cover market movements, trends, vendor strategies, as well as buyer trends and strategies, and Revenue Cloud and revenue transformation has been a hot topic on all our minds in the last couple of years.
Good to hear, Kate. Next up, we have Selva Pondian, our VP of Cloud Practice here at Demand Blue. Selva?
Thanks, Sindhuja. Welcome, everyone. I am very excited to join this webinar and talk about this B2B buying experience. I have 25 plus years of industry experience and then 10 plus years in the Salesforce ecosystem, and I have several Salesforce architect certifications. So looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Selva. And last but not least, we have Miles Sims, who is Demand Blue's Revenue Cloud Practice Head. Miles?
Yeah, thanks, Sindhuja. Yeah, so I head up our Revenue Cloud practice, and we work across the Salesforce Revenue Cloud products with our clients and CPQ projects, billing, working a lot with sales, finance, and IT, and really kind of helping with the overall revenue transformation and some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. So looking forward to it.
Exactly. So you met all our speakers. Stay tuned as we begin our session with a word from Kate on her presentation of Forrester's Insights. Kate?
Hey, thank you. So I want to take a step back, and instead of starting by talking about the new account executive, I want to talk about your buyer and your buyer's expectations of engagement. And you have to start at that point, because the account executive must support the buyer and support the buying experience that the modern buyer demands. So we know that buying expectations have changed. And it's really just because we're surrounded in our daily lives by experiences that up-level the expectations for engagement, experiences that take all friction out of getting a task done. Your buyers today, they expect their time to be valued. At Forrester, we say that your buyers expect to be able to access any information or data at any point at their moment of need, on any device and on any channel that they're using. It's really an omni-channel buying experience. And your customers, your buyers, expect these experiences not only from the companies that they interact with in their lives as consumers, but as well as in their business lives. And companies really have to be able to understand buyers' expectations and deliver upon those to be able to keep your buyers' ongoing loyalty. And at Forrester, we distill down the expectations of your buyers in a framework of 3 E's. We say customer experiences or buying experiences have to be easy, where your buyers have to be able to connect with a resource with as little friction as possible over the channel, over the touch point of their choice. Your buyers have to be effectively supported, be able to get that question answered, be able to get that configuration done completely and accurately without needing to follow up. And at the end of the day, your buyers expect empathetic experiences. And that means that the account executive, that the sales team has to be able to understand the buyer's situation, their context, their expectations, and use all the data that they have about the account to be able to deliver experiences in line with their expectations. And we say that great buying experiences really rest on technologies that provide great employee experiences. So these are technologies that allow your account executives to be as productive as possible. That's about all the AI and automation, offloading all the repetitive work that they have to do. These technologies have to facilitate your sellers on the most important work, your most strategic customers, for example, perhaps your hottest opportunities. And these technologies have to allow your buyers to connect with their sales team, to be able to collaboratively engage with and come up with the right solutions, the right configurations for that particular account. So we know that with these economic headwinds, companies right now are in real cost-cutting modes. But you really have to balance cost optimization motions against delivering great customer experiences that preserve and that really grow your customer base. And in these tough times, it's really even more important to deliver upon customer expectations, where we know at Forrester over a decade's worth of research that if you deliver great buying experiences, your customers ultimately will stay with your brand longer, will ultimately look to you for additional purchases, and will serve as an advocate, recommending your products, your services to their network. And these 3 dimensions of loyalty that you're looking at on the screen here, retention, enrichment, and advocacy, have a quantifiable impact to top-line revenue. And that's ultimately why you care about really understanding buyers' expectations for engagement and being able to deliver the right technologies, the right tool sets, the right processes for your account executives to be successful. So let me share a data point with you. Again, even with all the economic headwinds facing us, we still see that investing in customer experience is a top business priority. So the data that you're looking at on the screen here is from June of this year. And we surveyed thousands and thousands of software decision makers who told us that improving the customer experience was one of their top 5 priorities. And again, it's all about understanding your customer, their expectations, doing the right thing for them to be able to earn their business and ultimately grow their business over time. So your buyers, we're seeing 2 important areas of investments that the companies that we're working with are making to help deliver great customer experience. And on the next slide, you'll see some data points. The first area of investment is all around digital and self-service. Again, because your buyers expect their time to be valued. They're using the digital, more of the digital channels to interact with businesses, the same digital channels that they use in their lives as consumers. And this trend has really been accelerated since COVID. So here, I've got some data points here on the screen. Again, your buyers, they want to self-serve. Again, it's all about that easy, effective way of engagement. 61% of B2B buyers now prefer to research online, up from 53% in 2015. We also know that if you're able to provide digital omni-channel experiences, they're more profitable. 97% of SDRs, sales development inside sales teams, are able to hit their quota using 3 or more channels. And they help deliver speed. They help deliver value at the speed of business. Conversion rates are higher. Here's a data point: conversion rates of qualified opportunities were 8 times higher when buyers were contacted very quickly within the first 5 minutes, for example. However, digital channels, it's not only for the simple purchases. It's not only for the consumables, for example. We're seeing the shift to digital channels for the more complex purchases, from 28% in 2018 to almost 40% this year. But it's not either or. It's not a wholehearted shift to digital. What we know that research configuration, like a buyer's understanding of pricing, discounting, can be done online. But still, almost 60% of buyers, when they're making that purchase, they're doing it with an account executive, either assisting them in that digital purchase or wholeheartedly doing it for them. So again, your buyers, they're really looking for that full omni-channel experience and being able to shift across channels seamlessly and have the data and context follow them along. So the second area of investment is really around personalization, where data and insights and using data to drive real business decisions that have quantifiable outcomes. Your customers, your buyers, they want to be known, details about their industry, their competition. They want account executives to know who they are, to know the pressures that their industry, that their particular firm is facing. They want relevant case studies. They want customer references. They want sellers to add value, to give them that clear path to success. And again, we say that buyers expect salespeople to have a lot more data to be able to make those data-driven decisions. So let me put this all together. We've got the 2 focus areas: self-service, digital, omni-channel, and data. Let's take a step back and think about what your buyers, actually your customers, expect when they interact with you. So on the screen here, you're looking at what our depiction, Forrester's depiction of a customer journey. There's 6 stages in the journey. It doesn't mean that your buyer, your customer, goes through these stages linearly, one after another. It just means that if you take the entire journey, you can deconstruct it into 6 phases. You've got the discover and evaluate stage. Those are the marketing phases. Then there's the buy phase, the purchasing phase, and then the post-purchase phase of use, ask, and engage. So in the marketing phase, in the discover and explore phase, your buyers really expect to be self-directed. They don't want to be engaging with the seller. They want to download, for example, a white paper. They want to do the research on their own. And then when they have a question, your buyers want to be able to easily reach out to an account executive and have that value added conversation that builds on the information that the buyer has been able to discover on their own. And then when your buyer makes that purchase, they want to be able to understand bundling, discounting with as little friction as possible. They want to understand pertinent cross-sells, upsells. And then again, for post-purchase, they want to deploy the product and get onboarded and get that quick time to value. So one last set of data that I'm going to show you before we start our Q&A. Here's some data about how your B2B buyers are increasingly self-serving to educate themselves through those early top of funnel stages in the customer journey. So the dark green data is from traditional buyers that primarily engage with account executives in person or, you know, over video like we are right now. And the light green data points are the digital first buyers, those that use the self-service channels as a primary way to interact with firms. And so what you see is that both buyer types are using data that they're getting from websites, from conferences, from peer communities, from IT forums to educate themselves. They're really not relying only in-person sales engagements. So even if you're a traditional buyer, you are more and more self-serving, which makes the point of needing to support omni-channel buying experiences. So for the first question, Selva, I want to ask you, how do you see sales changing? I mean, we know that the role of the account executive and sales is changing. Again, I gave Forrester's point of view. How is it aligned with yours? What are the digital channels that we need to be looking at today?
So Kate, you kind of touched upon all of those stuff, but again, just from our perspective, right? Like you talked about how the customer experience, customer expectations are changing. They are becoming more knowledgeable, which definitely changes the role of the AE. That's our topic, right? They move to the next level. The AEs cannot just focus on the sales cycle, right? They have to look at the entire customer life cycle and see where the customer are and understand their touch points and have those conversations accordingly, right? So they got to surface relevant information for their customers all across their life cycle. That's the most important thing for the AEs, right? So just plug themselves into the entire buying journey and post-buying journey, and then talk about cross-sell, upsell opportunities accordingly. So that becomes very, very critical for today's sales teams. Okay. And from a digital channels perspective, right? Like you are seeing direct sales, indirect sales, you're looking at self-service. Again, self-service, you look at e-commerce, but it's beyond e-commerce, right? Today, you're looking at web portals, chats, social media, third-party marketplaces. You talked about various search engines, marketplaces, all those stuff which the customers are looking at. Those are all the opportunities which the organizations should look at from a channel perspective to increase their sales. Okay. And I also see that with more and more self-service happening, organizations should also look at various other touch points, like customer service touch points, which could actually play a role to increase their sales from upsell and cross-sell. Because if they are doing a self-serve, so the sales team may not be even interacting for maybe a small portion, but even those customers might reach out to your customer service team. That's an opportunity which, as a channel, organization should look at. Hey, how can we just use that as an upsell, cross-sell opportunity and serve their customer better? So those are all the things which I say. Miles, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the thing I'll add is just to say, especially when it comes to self-service and the account management piece, and I think it's so important that from a sales perspective, we have that holistic insight into what's happening and then understand the impact that that making those things easy for the customer to get, be it in the buying cycle or after the buying cycle when they are a client, that's all wrapped up in the overall sales experience for the buyer. So understanding those channels, being able to get to information easily from an account perspective, be it educational content or previous sales content, like a previous order. I think all of those things really impact the AE's role and then what the buying experience is for the customer.
Yeah, so easy access to information and having the customer 360 view, right? So I think,
Yeah.
Good. So maybe this is a good time to have our first poll question. So we can ask the audience, what are the digital channels they are considering in adding in the next 12 months? So see, we'll just give a minute for the audience to answer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting.
Social media
India.
over
Yeah.
customer portals.
Wow. Yeah. Very interesting. So we did talk about that customers are moving more and more to digital tools and automation. So that brings us to the next question. Hey, Miles, what do you think is the role of sales as companies and customers are moving more towards digital tools and automation? So how do you think they can serve their buyers better?
Yeah, I think that's it, right? Serving the buyers better. I think as we were talking about, and as Kate mentioned, a lot of that self-education, a lot of the things that those buyers are doing to understand what purchase they want to make, why that, or how that purchase is going to impact their business. I think sales really needs to play a much bigger role in helping, steer the buyer in the right direction if they have more complex questions, but also the automation and the things that are happening can free up sales time to get away from some of those maybe transactional non-sales motions and drive more complex sales and be able to really assist the buyer. Like it was 58% of buyers still want or need some sort of level of in-person interaction. So I think really making sure that sales can deliver that value at the right time and surface the insights correctly. I mean, that's what that automation and what those digital tools should be able to do.
So basically rely more on the tools, right? And maximize that.
Rely on the tools and then optimize where they're spending their time helping the buyer, right? Instead of just kind of having an order taker approach, it's making sure that the value you're getting from what you're buying is impacting your business, and sales needs to understand that.
Cool. So Kate,
I was
how do you
going to
think?
say that
Yeah, go ahead.
if you go back one slide, this data point is really interesting. This is Forrester data, where what's the role of the modern account executive? And we find that buyers want to interact with a modern account executive when their purchase is really expensive, when it's complex, when it requires an installation or a deployment or needs service, or when there's a complex pricing and discounting negotiation. So again, it's less for the straightforward sales. It's more for the complex sales where the buyer is looking for the account team to help them craft that right solution that will allow them to meet their business goals.
Got it, Kate. So we just talked about the tool. So how do you think we can leverage CRM and commerce tools better to engage the buyers in their buying journeys? Okay, maybe.
Yeah, happy to talk about this one. So I like this picture because it really shows that buyers ultimately they want to control the way that they engage with all the companies that they do business with. Here's a data point that I got for the audience. Millennials now make more than half of their B2B purchases through a website, 22% on a self-service basis, and 31% with the assistance of a sales rep. So of course, self-service, commerce interactions, portals, even self-service customer service that then leads to a cross-sell, upsell conversation. All of that will increase because it's an easy way to engage. But the account executive, like that data that I just talked about, will always have a role in complex sales. And so what you need is a commerce, a sales strategy that really blend self-service, digital, and assisted service modalities together, and allow the buyer to choose what modality they want to use depending on the complexity of the purchase, as well as the complexity of the buyer's decision process. And here on the screen here, I have a little rubric or framework that we use to explain what's the best modality to use depending on the complexity of the purchase. That's the data that you see on the y-axis, and the complexity of the buyer's decision. I mean, if it's a really straightforward decision, that's something else. Then if you're solutioning and you don't quite understand all the capabilities and components and packages that you may need to purchase to be able to deliver an outcome. So the way that we think about it, so in that black box that you see at the bottom of the screen, I think about, like, an example could be a consumable. I know, like a water filter from an expensive machine. So if the buyer's decision process is simple and the product is simple, the best modality to purchase that product is commerce, is self-service. So if the product is more complex but can be easily configured and the buyer's decision is simple, then again, you may want to offer assisted self-service. But if you've got, again, a product, a solution, a vision, and you don't quite understand what capabilities you need to purchase, so you've got a complex product and you've got a complex buying decision. At that point, you really need to rely on the account executive, on your sales team, to help guide you to the right solution. So we call that digitally enabled selling. And so to be able to support this omni-channel buying experience, you really need to architect many technologies together. And on the next screen, I have an example of some of the technologies that you need. Again, you're seeing the Forrester's depiction of the customer journey. That's the circle that I've talked to you about. So again, you need to equip the account executives, the sales team, you need core CRM, sales automation solutions. You may need sales engagement solutions for your SDRs, your BDRs. You need commerce technologies and portals for the self-service modalities. You need CPQ that integrates into commerce and integrates into your SFA CRM solutions. You also need to be integrated into contract lifecycle management solutions to be able to support that entire quote to cash process. So these are just some of the building blocks that you have to assemble and architect to be able to support omnichannel buying. So Selva, I'd like to ask, or actually I'm going to ask Miles, what impact does omnichannel have on the sales process? How do companies leverage CRM to stay on top of where buyers are in the overall experience?
Yeah, if we go to the next slide, I mean, Kate, some of the things you were just talking about, one of the things that's obvious is there's a lot more data now with all of these tools. There's a lot of data and insight collected as the customer's going through the buyer journey. And really the CRM with omnichannel, how it impacts the sales cycle is really to surface that data, both, from a sales perspective. So understanding on the self-service scale where they're at versus when they do need that interaction from a seller, and really helping sales make the right decisions and the right interactions with the customer based on all of that data. The CRM, was really helping us organize the sales process to feed that data into the right places, and then to be able to look at those buying behaviors to be able to help the sellers really drive that value we're talking about, really improve that buying process and make sure that if it is a complex sale, that the buyers have the information they need at the right time. And then we're not asking the buyer to repeat themselves, right? That's key. That's what omnichannel and all of that data does, is ensures that we're having an intelligent conversation with the buyer, not asking them to repeat themselves or go over something again. So, I think being able to aggregate that data and make it meaningful to sales is really one of the big things that CRM can do from an omnichannel perspective. And on that note, I think we're going to pop open our second poll question here. The first one was interesting. We got a good response around social media. For this one, we want to get a sense of really what area is a pain point for CRM today. So, within your CRM motions, what is something that maybe isn't optimized as it needs to be and could use some improvement. So we'll give a moment for response here and then take a look at the results. We forgot our Jeopardy music to play during these poll questions. So.
What do you think is going to be the top issue?
I'm going with data and analytics.
Yeah, that was my thought too. So
I'm going with user adoption.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll see.
wow,
wow.
It's a tie.
We're tied.
We're all right. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for participating in the second poll. All right, Kate, let you off the hook earlier, Selva, but now I'm going to put you on the spot here. What tools, in addition to CRM, are needed for today's sales team to better understand their buyers' overall needs?
So, Miles, I think.
Yeah, why don't you take this one?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, Miles, Kate, you both have been talking about that customers are expecting for the right information at the right time, with being proactive, have the contextual interactions of the customer, right? So I think the sales team and the AE cannot do this alone. You need the right tools in this kitty bag so that he can have all of this information and surface it to the customer at the right time, right? So I think CRM is the central piece, but there are a lot of automation tools. So I think it starts primarily with, hey, market intelligence. Kate, you mentioned that the customers are doing a lot of research. So if the salesperson is able to understand using these market intelligence tools about what the customer is researching, right? So you got to have, there are a number of tools which sits on top of say CRM, which can provide that market intelligent information about the customer's research, which you can leverage, and the buyer intent, right? Then you're also looking at sales performance management and sales intelligence tools, which provides you with what are the next best actions which you could do for your customer, right? Obviously, followed by when you get into the quoting lifecycle, you got to have your quoting product like the CPQ, the contract lifecycle management. We also talked about providing the right information, right? The customer success stories, the knowledge base and whatnot. So that's where the sales content management piece comes into play. So, and then once it's all happens, there when you go through the life cycle of using the product, the customer success tools come into play, and then the sales need all of this information to have meaningful and relevant and contextual conversation with their customers. So I think one aspect is primarily from around CRM, and I also see that things beyond CRM, right? I think the customer, we all talked about having the 360-degree view, right? It's beyond CRM. Hey, what are some of the marketing touch points the customer is having? What are some of the customer service touch points they have? What are the operational data? How are they using the system? What are their pain points with the system? So if the intelligence you can get from your products, which could be surfaced to the customer using the customer 360-degree, right? I think that's where choosing the right CRM platform like Salesforce makes a play, because all the tools we talked about from a CRM perspective, the layering on top of the CRM, and also the customer 360 platforms like the Salesforce provides that opportunity. And I also have billing as another piece, because this is very important, because what happens is we see that new revenue models are showing up and which means that the customer should have a experience from a billing perspective, all the way from quoting, all the way to get their invoicing. Do they have that seamless experience? And I think that having the right billing product is also critical from an organization perspective and a sales and accounting perspective, because if at all there is a problem with the invoices, that's the first thing, right? It's not just a issue or a customer service, it's also about trust. So I think these are kind of the tools which is really required from a sales team perspective. So now we talked about all these tools. I think it's now I think it's question to Kate and Miles. How do we enable sales better understand where they are, where the buyers are in their buying experience across these multiple platform tools and audience? So.
Miles, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll take a quick stab at this one. So I think, we've been talking a lot about the omni-channel experience, the data coming into CRM, and then our poll question we just had was interesting, right? We saw data and analytics was one pain point, and the user adoption or user experience. So I think, if we want to take a look at the next slide, which I think has some interesting insight into, why buyers had a negative experience with sales. And I think, this really lends itself to making sure that sales has a strong internal user experience for all of this data and all of these tools that they're using. So, we can layer on all these different selling tools, but if it doesn't make sense to the sales team and the sales rep, it doesn't enable them to quickly make decisions and see where the buyers are at in the overall process, then it is going to provide some frustration on both sides. So, really making sure that sales feels empowered, sales has a good user experience. If we are leveraging multiple tools and platforms, integrations on top of Salesforce CRM and bringing in LinkedIn data and all the different things that we've, kind of talked about, sales needs to be able to consume that information and apply it to where the buyer is in the sales cycle. So, from my perspective, that's really key, is making sure, as it says here, making sure that we surface that data to sales correctly, and they feel like they can quickly see what's happening with that specific client, see where they're at, and then communicate in a timely way with the right information.
Yeah, there's some great data points on the slide that just show that your sales teams don't do a great job at being able to support their buyers. Here, you've got 34%. That's a third of buyers thought that their sales teams didn't provide them with valuable or useful information. I mean, what's the role of a sales person in that scenario? 28% of buyers said that their sales teams didn't communicate with them at a regular cadence, or didn't understand their needs, or were not even knowledgeable to be able to help them out. I mean, that degrades the salesperson just to an order taker, and your sales team have so much more value to a buyer than just being an order taker. So the way that we think about it at Forrester is like Selva pointed out before, you need a lot of technologies to be able to support that salesperson in being able to meet their buyer's expectation at every single stage of the sales cycle. And what you need to do is you need to build a sales tech stack that is purpose-built for the different sales roles. So your account executive, your BDR, your sales engineer will have a different sales tech stack put together, purpose-built for them. But at the heart of all sales tech stacks is your CRM or your sales automation solution. It's your foundational component. And it does great at supporting account management, opportunity management, pipeline management, forecasting, and it does a great job at enforcing repeatable processes, sales processes, and to be able to gather that data, to be able to understand sales activities, cadences, manage your pipeline and accurately forecast. But your SFA or CRM tool ultimately won't necessarily reduce administrative work or won't give the salesperson all the market insights that they're looking for. They won't as well automate the bottom of the funnel activities like contracting or quoting or discounting. So what you need to do is once you've got that CRM or sales automation, which is part of your CRM in place, you need to layer on other technologies, again, purpose-built for all the different sales roles. You may need to, I think, Miles, you mentioned LinkedIn data, that second party, even third behavioral data that you may want to layer on about your account, about your buyers, to be able to round out that customer profile. Then you want to add in market intelligence data, again, to help the account teams better understand the buyer's industry and their market pressures. You may want to use, for example, relationship intelligence if you've got complex organizational hierarchies, to be able to understand reporting structures and even influencer relationships in your account. And there's also a lot of other tools that you can layer on, like content management solutions, if you need case studies or presentations to be able to serve up, to be able to be recommended based on the buyer's profile. Next best actions, again, to help personalize and optimize buyer experiences. So again, on the screen here, I've got some, but not all of the technology that you can layer on top of your CRM to be able to support your account executive.
Right, so we've thrown a lot of stuff out there for the AE role for the account executive. So I think that's more than one role really is going to be able to take on. So Selva, maybe give us a little insight into kind of what other roles you see, being created as a response to all of this transformation and change around digital channels being used by the sales team.
Yeah, you're right, Miles. I think we talked about a lot of responsibilities, a lot of expectations from the account executive, and we cannot expect them to have superpowers to do all of that alone. So obviously, there are more roles are getting created in the sales organization, right? I think Kate kind of mentioned from a life cycle perspective what the expectations are. So we see that as the customers are going through those life cycles, we see a lot of roles which are getting created for those life cycles in the organization. So we see BDR, ISRs, business development, or the inside sales rep who takes the role to educate the customer. They have the information which they could share if they are on the educational stage and pass on the baton when the customer move to the next stage from nurturing or in the buying stage. And I think even there, right? So we said that we wanted the customers expect the sales team to be knowledgeable. They expect them to know their business. They wanted to uncover opportunities within the customer's environment, and all of that stuff. Those are not possible even by a single A. So that we see that there are industry specialist roles, product specialist role, vertical roles which are getting supported, which supports the AEs in their with the customer engagement in their buying process. And once the purchase happens, and then now we move to the customer success here, right? So you wanted to make sure that the customers are leveraging your product and utilizing it well. So you see that customer success management roles, the customer success organizations are getting created not only in high tech, which is there. We see that in manufacturing, hardware organizations. Most companies are trying to see that there's an important in building that customer success organization in that role. So this is all from the sales life cycle. And I think that moving on to the leadership side, right? Like you are looking at not just from a sales perspective, all these digital channels, right? Like makes the organizations realize that there are leadership positions which are required. So we used to have just the sales team responsible from a revenue generation perspective. But you see that there are a lot of new revenue models getting created. You see traditional businesses like entertainment, automobile, furniture companies, hardware companies providing this all as a service. Okay, so you have chief revenue officer roles. Many organizations wanted them to be responsible for identifying new revenue models and then create some new revenue models which will help them create more revenue opportunities, right? Then you look at, so these digital channels as such, there are several tools out there and which could help the entire organization. You look at chief strategy officer who look at a digital strategy perspective, even they are responsible from a revenue perspective. Then the more important, we talked a lot about data, right? So data provides you an opportunity to unlock a lot of opportunities based on patterns and trends of how the customers are using your system, your product, right? So and chief data officer role. So we see these additional leadership roles are also getting created to help the customers from their selling perspective. So
thank you for that, Selva. I think I'm going to change the conversation a little bit and ask you about automation. What's the impact of automation across digital channels for the sales executive? Is it ultimately making their life easier, or are these account executives, are their jobs going to be redundant, obsolete? Selva, do you have a point of view?
Sure, Kate. I think like you and Miles shared a lot of information about how even though there is self-service and other digital channels introduced, there are still assistive. So the customer still wanted to engage with a salesperson from a complex sales perspective. Again, this is a slide which talks about, this is a research done, and you see that even at a scale of 50K to 500K, there's only 32% of customers who are willing to spend on their own from a self-service perspective. So I think the role of sales team or the AE is not going to go away anytime soon. So it's becoming even more valuable, because for all those complex sales, the sales team are the ones who can handle the customer, take them through the finish line, and make sure that the sale happens. Okay, so I think that the sales team are going to get involved in the right accounts for the right opportunities, and then can focus on things which are most matters to their organization. So that's how I think the role is going to evolve. And also from an automation perspective, right, it's definitely going to make their job better and easier. So how can they do well? So we see that this data point, right, this talks about, it's a Forrester research which says that close to 28% of the time the sales rep spends on non-core activities. And also they actually spend more than 53 hours a week. Okay, so how do we eliminate that? How do we make sure that they don't spend that much amount of time, and how do we make sure that they don't spend time on non-core activities? And I think that's where the automation comes into play. How can we automate repetitive tasks? How do we standardize process? How do we make sure that they are focusing on things which matters to that most? And I think the tools which we talked about earlier helps the sales reps through those automations and helps them to focus on core sales activities and core customer, understanding their customer needs and priorities, and handle and provide the selling experience which the customers are expecting.
All right, thanks, Selva. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, appreciate everybody attending today. We've got a few minutes left, about 2 minutes left. I think we're going to hang out for a bit for any Q&A. I hope everybody got some value out of our conversation here today. And as Sindhuja mentioned, we're going to be sharing the recording, but definitely open to any questions or any feedback. And again, thanks for spending part of your day with us. All right, so it looks like we've got a question here from high-tech company and currently only using direct sales channel. What's the best way to go about introducing additional channels? Kate or Selva, do you guys want to take a swing at that one?
Sure, maybe I'll take a first stab at it, and then maybe I'll have Kate follow that. So I think, so since you're an IDEC organization, obviously we first have to look at the customer buying journey and then see where exactly you will get maximum impact from a sales experience perspective, right? So I think that's the first thing. Obviously, introducing additional channels is not just a technology project, right? So it is very important to understand the people and process perspective. So before even introducing additional channels, just make sure that the people and the process are aligned, and then look at your buying journey and see where do you find the opportunity to where you have maximum value for your customers by introducing that channel, right? Like obviously you can look at if you have partners or vendors, you're looking at the indirect sales partner portal or customer reseller portal, and from a self-service perspective, e-commerce and all those channels are there. But in my opinion, it's important to understand the people process angle and make sure that they are aligned, and then go about introducing the additional channel. Kate?
Yeah, the way I would answer the question is I want to know what activities your sellers are doing. What does the sales process look like? And are there parts of the sales process that can be easily ported to a self-service or a digital channel? And again, automating those end-to-end processes, supporting them over to digital channels. And again, like Selva says, it's not only a technology or even a process issue. You also need to have the right staffing in place. For example, sellers that are comfortable interacting on digital channels, and that may take some coaching and training, or perhaps they're new hires that you want to think about adding to your sales organization.
Yeah, that's good insight. All right, looks like we've just got a few minutes left. See if there's any more questions. If not, appreciate everyone joining us today. All right, looks like we have one more. What would the typical cost? We have, let's see, got a couple that came in. So let's go with this other question. Using Salesforce as a CRM, what tools would you recommend to expand or understand, to better understand our customer? tools that come to mind from Ian's perspective are ZoomInfo, LinkedIn. How do these integrate with Salesforce? I think that's a great question. I'll take a quick stab at that, and then Kate, so if you guys want to add any detail. But I think from a sales motion standpoint, tools like ZoomInfo and LinkedIn, being able to layer in some color onto your accounts. There's native integrations with those tools, so you can go and through the Salesforce App Exchange, kind of do a plug and play for some of those. In some instances, there are unique data points that you might want to leverage their API and actually build a custom integration that obviously comes with some trade-offs. But I think most commonly people are going to leverage those App Exchange plugins, be able to build a fuller picture of their accounts, by understanding annual revenue, understanding who some of the executive teams are, and even understanding some of the things that are happening within that client organization, be it funding events or acquisitions. That's going to really bring some of that insight into those accounts within your CRM and Kate or Selva. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
The only thing I would add, Miles, is again market intelligence tools, right? Like if you are looking at buyer, understanding the customer and also their intentions, right? Like we talked a lot about search engines and what the customer is doing in the internet to search data about the products and services. Those data are available through market intelligence tools. Again, obviously, they're all identifiable by cookie and whatnot. So if you're looking to understand your customer buying intent, there are market intelligence tools which you could look at, which can be added on top of Salesforce, provide buyer intent data as well. So.
Yeah, and I'll throw cold water on the conversation is as you add App Exchange products to your core licenses, your cost will go up. So again, do a due diligence, make sure that you don't have overlapping capabilities between the different App Exchange apps, and just realize that your cost per seat does go up with many of these apps.
All right, I think we've got time for one more. Another question that came in around typical project costs for implementation of adding these additional channels. Selva, I'm going to put you on the spot for that one and see insight into what the investment looks like for adding some additional digital channels.
I think it's a very open question. I don't think that project costs are vary a lot. So we got to understand what the scope of work is, right? That's very important to come up with. So it could be, so I don't want to throw in any number. I think that it could be, the only thing I would suggest is, look at, if you're budget constrained, you don't have to go with a big bang approach. You can start with an MVP and start building on top of those capabilities. So look at the capabilities which takes the lowest effort as the maximum value for your customers and your internal staff, and take with that and then keep adding functionality. So this agile project methodology goes well with that and allows you to build on top of your MVP. So that would be the thing. Anything, Miles, Kate, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I agree on the MVP or proof of concept, especially like when we're working on CPQ projects and we're getting into complex quoting, being able to get that in front of the sales team, the pre-sales teams, and understand kind of how many users it's going to impact, which is going to directly relate to cost per license, and what that change looks like within your organization. And that's all going to be part of how that project is looked at from an investment standpoint. But that's also something we're definitely willing to have some more conversations about beyond the webinar. So I think we are at time. We'll follow up with any other additional questions offline. Appreciate everybody joining us today, and appreciate Kate and Selva, you guys being on as well. And thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Of course,
thank you, everyone. Thanks, Miles, Kate.
Yeah, thank you.